BJ Counsel. I view the world through the lens of having been followed by a white clerk as a child while shopping in a five and dime. I'm a retired police executive and own UN50, which gives guidance on surviving interactions with police. So how you guys doing? Thanks for joining UN50's podcast.
I'm well. Thanks for having us.
Thanks. So for those of you that are joining us for the first time, my name is BJ Counsel, and UN50 is based in Durham, North Carolina. And we talk about different things that deal with policing. UN50 deals with teaching individuals how to interact safely with law enforcement. And for those of you that are joining us for the first time, welcome. And for those of you that listen to us on a regular basis, thank you for the support, and we really appreciate it. What we do here is talk about things that are police related, but we also talk about things that are not police related, mental health, community things that go on that can be supportive so people don't end up getting into the judicial system. So we try to make this a holistic conversation. Our belief here is that everybody needs to be at the table to have this total discussion. So tonight, what we have are two officers from Kinston Police Department in Kinston, North Carolina. A little bit of background as far as I'm concerned. I've been working with them since about 2019, doing UN50 work, primarily in schools, but in the community, and having the conversation and working with the police department there. Just so you'll know, if you look up Kinston, Kinston is a small eastern part of North Carolina, and it is predominantly the demographic is African Americans. And I enjoy working with Kinston because they have the conversation, the relationships with their community is open, and they definitely believe in having the uncomfortable conversation, and I support that wholeheartedly, of the work that they're doing. So tonight, their Chief Keith Goyette and Captain Jenkins, who is, you won't see him, you may not, and you won't hear him. They were very supportive of me having two of their officers on the show. They are school resource officers, or SROs, and we're going to be talking about that and what they see on the ground level for the schools. So we'll get into that. So first, let me introduce you and let them tell you a little bit about themselves. And I'm going to go in the order of senior officer. So I think that's when I'm going to start with Officer Mewborn, if you'll just tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. Yes, like she said, I'm Officer Rob Mewborn. Been with the Kinston Police Department for a little over 5 years. My current role is SRO, where I have served for the last 5 years. I was born and raised right in Kinston, North Carolina, so I am a product of Kinston. So I get the privilege of being able to work where I grew up at and give back, and give back in that way.
Right. Awesome. Thank you. And I'm going to talk about that too, the fact they're there. All right. Then we have Officer Rouse. Let's hear a little bit about you, Officer Rouse.
Hello, I'm Officer Rouse. I have been hired with the Kinston Police Department for 3 years, just beginning to be a school resource officer. So far, so good. I've been enjoying it. Just as Officer Mewborn, I'm also from Kinston, North Carolina, born and raised here. So it's good to kind of see familiar faces in the community. That definitely helps out a lot with being a police officer.
Well, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and start with that right there, because we need to talk about that. I was on a panel this weekend, and one of the questions were for the law enforcement personnel that were there was, why aren't we hiring more from local, from here, from Durham and those types of things. And, they got the basic, it's hard to hire, it's expensive to live here, and blah, blah, blah. So my response was, for the Black community, we got to stop vilifying police officers.
Yeah.
And so, especially in our Black community, you're looking at them and not really telling your child it's just something to be proud of. And
right.
So in the Black community, we got to change that paradigm shift. So I knew Mewborn, you were from Kinston, but this is awesome.
Right.
I mean, this is like, I couldn't have even started this off even better.
Right.
I mean,
Absolutely.
This is exactly, we got two Black police officers who live in their community. They are working in their community. And she just said she knows folks.
Right.
That makes what do y'all even get that? I'm gonna let y'all go with that, but I'm gonna say y'all just blew me out of the water with that right there. I'm just happy. Go ahead.
Well, you said, it makes a big difference. And when we talk about why aren't there any officers who are applying or who, who just see fit to be a cop, a lot of them, they're afraid to come out of that norm. They're afraid to be categorized as you're the one that came out and said you want to be a cop. Not everybody from the hood, let's just be honest, not everyone from the hood, if you will, want to be the police. And the ones who do are afraid to step out and do that because they're afraid of the backlash or what the community is going to say or what their friends is going to say, things like that. And for me, I was like I said, I was a product of Kinston. And I just wanted to do something different. Being a cop was something that I wanted to do. I didn't know how to do it because, keep in mind, in my neighborhood, there wasn't a lot of Black cops. Okay.
Right.
So I didn't have that role model or that person that I could go to and say, hey, look, I want to be a cop. What do I need to do? You know what I mean? So it took me going through, a lot of things that find my calling or to find out what I wanted to do. And once I became a cop, I had people in the community who, would come up to me and say, look, man, I wanted to do it, but my record, or I wanted to do it, but man, my family just won't go for it. So me coming out and doing it, to me, it was an accomplishment, if you would. Just a little bit about me. I was a high school dropout. I dropped out in the 9th grade, and had no direction of, or no purpose of what I wanted to do with my life, And, we both know that, and I think the old people say a lot, of idle mind is a devil's workshop. So if you don't have anything positive that you're doing, something negative is bound to follow. So
yeah,
just kind of got tired with the wrong crowd. And I had my first child at a very young age. And my father was very adamant, you're going to have to do something. I'm one of them old schools, and my father was old school. So he was like, you dropped out of school, you're going to have to go to work. You're going to have to do something. And I think from there, I just started going back and working. And later on, I did go back to school, obviously. But it was just that whole picture of just not having that role model or that guidance or something that I can look up to and feel like, okay, I can do this,
Man, this is awesome. I mean,
Yeah.
this is exactly what we need to hear. I mean, because just that. I mean, I was almost in tears as soon as you said about there were no Black role models, police officers for me to see.
Right.
That's huge. Okay, we're gonna come back to that, but I need Rouse to talk now because she from Kinston too.
What mine is, with me being in the younger generation, a lot of people say what they would do, and especially like with social media, you see it a lot happening. Why do they do this and why do they do that? But a lot of people aren't willing to actually come inside and figure out why. And if you don't like that why, make changes, actually have your input in it. And so that's why I really wanted to join. So, because I see both sides. Being in the community, I know why they feel the way they do. I mean, I'm Black as well. I know why
right.
And how I used to feel when I see stuff that's happening on social media. So I wanted to come in and kind of voice my opinion that way to say, okay, I see why the community feels this way, and also understand why the police act in this way, but trying to find a way to kind of mend the two. So just little things that I've been doing in the community, just going out. Recently, I spoke with people in the community on how we can better our relationship, and just speaking with them and kind of bringing it back to the police department, having a little PowerPoint on their viewpoint and what they would like to see from us to, like I said, kind of mend the relationship so they can see us in different perspectives. So that's kind of why I wanted to become a police officer.
Man, y'all knocking it out the park, and we ain't even been talking for 5 minutes. I mean, this is exactly it. I mean, that guy asked that question, and I cannot believe the universe put you two right here in front of me, both from Kinston,
Yes.
and doing this. I think that whole. I don't think I ever really thought of it in a manner of I didn't see a Black police officer.
Mm-hmm.
And I also appreciate your story too, Mewborn, because I went to college and I didn't graduate because I ain't gonna go into details, but let's just say I ain't graduate.
Right. I get it. I
And
understand.
yeah. And so I needed a job.
Mm-hmm.
And they were hiring. I was working 3 part-time jobs, and then somebody said, "You might be a good police." I was like, "I can work 1 job and get 1 more than I'm making with 3 jobs."
Right.
Sign a sister up,
Exactly.
So and then
That's
the
a
universe,
no-brainer.
yeah, that's a no-brainer right there. But then the universe said, "This is where you're supposed to be."
Right.
And then the fact that you did this because you wanted to do something different
Right.
and you
And
wanted
I
to be a
think
role model. Yeah.
right. And I think the important part is, and I think in the Black community, a lot of I wasn't afraid to be different. You know, in the Black community, we have a standard that is created within the Black community as okay. If I can ball good, I'm gonna play basketball. Okay, if I
Yeah.
can throw it good, I'm gonna play football. And what we do is we align the kids with that one vision without allowing them to see, hey, look, you could. There's other ways that you can do it. You know, you can be a cop, you can be a probation officer, you can be a detention officer, you can be a jailer. There are other things that you can do in that Black body where you're not categorized or the whole stigma of going to the NBA, because we don't realize it, but we put a lot of pressure on a child when we never really stop and ask that child, what is it that you want to do? All right.
Right.
Basketball may not be for you. You may can do it good, but that's probably something that you don't want to do. What do you want to do? And I think that's one of the conversations that probably need to be had in the Black community. Take time with that young person and find out what is it that they do want to do. Right. As opposed to what we're pushing them towards. And I see that a lot, you know.
Right.
You talk with the average kid on the streets, he's gonna tell you he want to play basketball, he want to play football. That's it.
Yeah,
you know
can't
what
see
I mean?
beyond that. Yeah.
And if you say, well, why not be a cop, they're gonna frown against that. And I think one reason is because the community as a whole, right, and we see and teach these kids, we're teaching them against police officers.
Yeah, exactly.
When in actuality, something happens,
who you gonna call?
It's gonna be the first one there, but they're gonna be free to call.
Yeah, you ain't calling Ghostbusters. You calling,
you know. Yeah. So I think we're setting them up to fail when we do that, and don't give them that clear guidance.
Yeah, Rouse, if you don't mind, because I'm an old school police officer. So how do you mind telling me how old you are?
I'm 24.
Okay, so there we go. So you are considered Gen Z or which one of those letters are you?
I have no idea.
You have no idea. Man, I usually do. Yeah, you might be Gen Z, you might be Gen X. I don't know. But the bottom line is 20 years ago. So you came up. Who was president when you realized who was president? When you knew who was president, were you paying attention? Who do you remember as a president?
Like the main one would be President Obama. Okay. That's like the main one that I actually paid attention to, just being honest.
Oh, no, that's okay. And that's what I'm saying. So that's the kind of the era that you came up in. So you came up in the era of Trayvon Martin.
Yes, ma'am.
You came up in the era of, would you have come up in the era of Michael Brown? You were not a police officer when Michael Brown occurred, correct?
No, ma'am.
Okay, so what reason I'm asking that is that we also have to remember that individuals like you, Officer Rouse, are coming to the law enforcement, and you know what has been happening over the last 10 or 15 years, and you still chose to come into this industry with this reputation or in this moment. So kind of talk about that, knowing, all right, you're in Kinston and all this other stuff that's been going on, because ain't nothing been new. It's just that the phone's new, right? Mm-hmm. So tell me a little bit about how that you coming up, seeing all this police brutality and killing of Black bodies, but you still chose to be the popo.
Well, it's kind of just like what I said earlier, watching it on social media and seeing it. It's always so much you can do actually seeing it instead of being inside it and with it. So when I seen it and used to see it, speaking of those two deaths, it's like an uproar. I felt the rage just as everyone else in my community felt. And so with me, I'm just like, well, what can I do to hopefully stop it? So I don't have to keep seeing this. So it can't be something that's becoming like a norm. So that's really why I kind of wanted to get my foot in the door, because if everybody just kind of sits back and just watches it, nothing's going to really change or be done. You actually have to have people in there that's willing to, have their partner, wait, back up, stop, or call people out when they're doing wrong. And if not, then like I said, it's just going to keep on happening. So with me, I don't mind, if I see Mewborn, he's kind of getting upset, hey, I got it, back up. And he's the same way with me. So you just kind of have to have people that's willing to step up and stop stuff like that from happening. And I know that I was willing to be that police officer. So I definitely want to join, just that kind of, like I said, hopefully help.
I'm going to give a shout out to Captain Kevin Jenkins. I know he's in the room, and I want to say, man, thank you for these two. These are awesome people right here. This is awesome. So yeah, so that's good stuff. So I appreciate that. Yeah, that says a lot. I'm glad we started with that. So you guys are school resource officers,
Yeah.
and one of the things that I talk about in some of the work that I do is just how do we help our youth not to enter into the system. What are some things? And the one reason I think the conversation I wanted to have with you, the both of you, obviously being both Black and in a city that's predominantly African American, I just kind of want to talk a little bit about what you're seeing on the ground when you're dealing with kids, and don't want to be obviously calling anybody out, but I kind of want to talk about when being police officers, we see stuff. We see the things that don't nobody else want to see, don't nobody else want to talk
Right.
about, blah, blah, blah. But we also, the stuff that we're seeing, we also, if we're in this business long enough, realize that if that situation does not change, that we're going to see this individual either bleeding out on the street
Right.
or in the judicial system. So I just kind of want you to talk about some of the things that that you see, and also not, and then we can talk about some of the things you think can be beneficial to community members and to our youth and the next generation. So
Right.
whoever wants to take that first.
Well, I think I'm gonna start it off with the elephant in the room, which is the obvious, the gangs. I mean, we're seeing a big problem with gangs. Not saying that it has never been a problem, but I think we're seeing more of a problem now because we have, some of our rappers who are heavily engaged in gang activity, and we know that most of our youth are listening that rap, and to those sensitive ears, it's like gold. And I think what's happening is that we are right now, I think not only parents, law enforcement, or anybody in authority, whether it be principals or whoever, we're fighting an endless fight. And the reason I say that is because the parents are going to deal with it at home, but then when that child comes to school, that principal and that SRO are going to deal with it. We're going to deal with the attitudes. We're going to deal with the disrespect. We're going to deal with, the marijuana and all different types of stuff that, we would have to deal with. And not placing the blame on gangs alone, because we know that it's 3 and 4-fold. It's more than just that. But I think, I think if we go head on and start dealing with the gangs, we would probably eradicate a lot of the other problems that we deal with in school. And like I said, the gangs, the disrespect, some kids are not coming to school for different reasons, so things of that nature.
So let me before Rouse, before you go, I kind of want to talk about the gang, the rappers, and because the first thing they're gonna say, that ain't my problem.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? Because they get
Right, absolutely.
Yeah, because I mean, yeah. So tell me, because you do work with children.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think
based on what you see, okay, what I was asking is based on what you see, you can say with a lot of conviction that it does impact this child based on what this person is saying.
And I think for the feeble mind to say it's not my problem, it's like me going home every day in my home, shutting my door, cutting my TV on, getting my lemonade and getting my remote and saying, okay, whatever happened today is not my problem. I would be less than an SRO if I would say that, because in actuality, it is my problem, and I think as adults, and not only as adults, but, law enforcement as well as a community, we got to hold ourselves accountable for the youth. Okay. We got to be in a position where, we got to go at this thing head on and start dealing with the youth, finding out what's going on with them. How can we help? How can we be the problem? How can we be the solution to your problem? And I think what we're seeing a lot is that, when it come down, I'm gonna go back to this, when it come down to the basketball, we will support the kids when they're having a basketball game. But when they're having a crisis, when mom is out the home, when dad is out the home, when they're having internal issues, are we there supporting them? So I think that's definitely a conversation that we need to have. We need to be more accountable, in terms of the youth.
Okay. All right. Your turn, Rose.
With me working with younger students, I think it's more so the fact that they want attention. They want to be heard. They want to be seen. So some are willing to resort to anything just so they feel like a human almost. And I think part of that kind of starts at home, we're not home with them, so we don't really know all that goes on at home. But it really boils down to attention. If you're not getting an attention, that's when you are mainly more on social media. You are listening to the music and doing all that. So it's filling your head up with kind of the violence part instead of the I love yous and the hugs that you're not really getting. So I really think that they just long for attention, and when they're not getting it, they're more likely to result in violence and the fights and being disrespectful. But it's just like they just have so much rage built in, and some of them really just don't know how to communicate yet because they are a younger generation. So not really knowing how to properly communicate and having that void of affection and attention just kind of creates a problem. And it's hard to fix that because, like I said, it starts at home. And by us not being, home with them, of course, we're kind of getting like the backlash of it. So when they come to schools, of course, we're giving them hugs every morning. We give them high fives and daps and checking in on them. And it definitely does help, I think, because you have the kids at first with me just starting out as a school resource officer that wouldn't speak to me at all. No matter, I could step right in front, hey, how you doing? And it's like, it's a brick wall. I'm not here. But they continues, hey, how you doing? Good morning. I hope you have a good day. And just showing them like, I'm here. I can be that person that you can talk to. And so now I have students that wasn't talking to me at all, that's willing to actually run up to me. Good morning, Officer Rouse. How you doing? Wow. So I think it's just like I said, it all boils down to attention. And like I said, they're not getting it at home. Some aren't, unfortunately. So we as SROs are having to step in and do more just so they know it's other routes. It's people out here that do care for you. And, just finding other avenues instead of, like I said, the violence and filling your head up with things that aren't really good for you.
Right.
Go ahead.
Before you say, BJ, I think Officer Rouse touched on something that's very important. And I think it probably need to be said because I think a lot of parents dealing in this era that we're dealing with and the climate in which we live in, because I'm old school as well, I'm 44. So, I grew up old school. Right. My father was very old school. He wasn't a domineering father, but he was passive to a certain degree. And one thing I wasn't allowed to do is express myself. Okay, it's what my parents say, and that's what it is. But right. the society in which we live in now, I think is very important, and it should have been important then, that when you're dealing with the young people, at least listen to what they're saying. Right. They want to be heard because like you, myself, and Officer Rouse, no matter what it is, we still want to be heard. We still want to get right. our point across. Right. So when you have a child who has gotten to some type of issue and you're telling this child, I'm going to give you the consequence and I'm not going to allow you to express yourself, you're building more anger because now the child simply want to express to you why they did what they did. This is why I did it. And from my experience, most of the time, that child know that they're wrong. They just want you to hear what they got to say. Just right. hear their side. And I think in a lot of homes that need to be done, not trying to critique a home, but I think if more parents would say, okay, let me hear what you say. All right, let me hear your side. The teacher said you did this, or the SRO said you did this, or that principal said you did this. Let me hear your side. And a lot of times just allowing them to vent.
Right.
It makes for a better conversation,
Right. So I want to get some clarity. I mean, I think I know the answer, but when you talk about they're not getting attention at home, I think for some folks that might not understand what we see on the ground level as to when you say that, I mean, again, I think I know the answers, but it just in a generic kind of form of, what's happening at the house that you may or be aware of, at certain houses there's someone there using drugs, there's abuse, or, and I hear, I know the stories. So just kind of give the audience some, I mean, you're just not saying they're not getting attention at home, it's because you kind of know what may be going on at the house. Can you kind of talk about that just a little bit?
And I wouldn't even say, I mean, of course, it is a factor, and in some homes it is something that occurs about drug use and abuse happening between the mother and the father. But it's also mom and dad could work, and they're having to almost watch themselves. They're having to be a parent to their younger siblings. And so I think that definitely plays a factor, just not having an older adult there. And even though I do say giving a hug or saying I love you. But sometimes even that's not enough for a kid. It's actually
Right.
like sitting down on the bed with them and how was your day at school? What happened today? Do you need help with your homework? Because a hug, I love you can only go, but so far because that could be said while I'm walking out the door to go to work. So
Right.
it's just like finding that time, and I know it's hard because people do have to work.
Right.
But actually find that time to really like sit down with the kids to actually kind of get more personal with them. Well, I have to say with your child, to get more personal with them. I think that'll definitely help out.
So I want thank you, Rouse, for correcting me and always making sure that I don't stay in this assumption that it's always about drugs and abuse. So I really appreciate you correcting that. And that helps my listeners as well too. I mean, we got to remember these are single mothers sometimes, or mother and father at home, and they're doing their best.
Right.
They're doing their best because they got to go to work. And then it really just we start going down that rabbit hole about living wages, houses, and jobs that so they can be home.
Right.
So they can be home, that they can both work in a manner that the most of us, including Black folks, we're privileged. I mean, we don't usually say the word privilege for Black folks, but we privileged. I mean, we got ours. And there are some folks that we got to realize there's still folks that are struggling and doing all they can do.
Right.
And unfortunately, their children end up suffering if they don't have a village.
Right.
They don't have a village to help out. So, Mewborn, you got anything on that one?
I mean, and I think it's vital that we say what time is. I mean, we look at the thing time, TIME. That time can be just a conversation about that child's day. And I know I'm kind of going back to that a little bit because I understand the importance of it. And I think we should understand the importance of it when it comes down to them young people. Because, I mean, what I see a lot is that kids, we got to understand that these kids are dealing with grown-up situations with a 15 or 16-year-old mind.
Yeah.
Sometimes we dealing with it with an adult mind with 40, 50, 20-some years experience, experience. And we still have trouble processing it. So I think it's important that we understand the struggles that they go through in trying to figure all this stuff out at 13, 14, 15, 16 years old. And it's hard. So I think it is important that, that time piece, just spending time. If it's number 15 minutes, if that's what you got, but take that 15 minutes and make it a valuable 15 minutes that you spend with that child, even now find out, their friends. I think that's important. Find out about their relationships. What type of relationships they're involved in, things like that.
Go ahead, Rouse. You were amening him on that one.
Yeah, I was just saying most definitely.
You were amening him on that one. Yeah. You guys have just been really, really awesome. And I think what we got to figure out as I'm listening to you, and I said to use the term the village. I think also as Black community members, we need to figure out how to reach back and get one.
Right.
You ain't gotta get everybody. You just reach back and get one. Just get one. I mean, I tell people I got my one. I've had her for 15 years.
Right.
And she's still struggling, but she's still doing what she need to do, but she's still struggling. And Mewborn, I appreciate what you said. Every now and then she just call and talk about whatever she's going through, and she just needs an ear to listen. She's 20 something, man, but she's still calling and talking to me. Yeah. And I mentioned the thing that makes me feel really good is that besides her telling me that she loves me, because I got her, or we met when she was 7 years old. Her father's a drug dealer, back in prison again. At the age of 9, she was at his house, and the girlfriend what she says was, she said, I remember the Tims kicked in the front door and there was a gunfight. Daddy at the top of the stairs, guy coming in the door, and they were shooting at it. This girl is 9 years old. And so she's still good. But what she says to me is, I saw different. That was it. So also, you guys are talking about all we're saying for folks and Black folks and those allies, mentor somebody.
Yeah.
So you can help that kid who needs the attention that Rouse is giving a hug to.
Right.
And it doesn't cost anything. It
doesn't.
Really, it's just, as you said, TIME. That's all.
That's
all. And we need to do that better as a community of Black folks who have become bougie and have gotten, I got mine, I got mine. And we gotta reach back and help folks. Because like Rouse, and I really appreciate you checking me on that too. People out here trying to do the best they can and trying to keep a roof over their house, trying to keep the lights on, trying to
Yeah.
keep food on the table. They're doing all they can do.
Wow.
And unfortunately who suffers is the
Yeah.
child.
I mean, even with two people, it's hard. So
Right.
it's
Yeah,
just people sometimes, you know.
yeah, yeah, it is. So now that we've kind of talked about what in your opinion and the work that you guys are doing, what are some of the things the community can do? Because I know, Rouse, I appreciate some of the stuff you're talking about, talking to the community and getting them to the table, but I'm also a supporter of stop looking at the popo to do everything.
Right.
I get we want to do as much as we can. I get SROs are caring and loving and all that, but that's not our lift.
Hmm.
We have a particular role.
Right.
And so I guess I just kind of want to know from both of your viewpoints as to what needs to happen.
Well,
What are some things that need to be put in place, resources, what needs to happen?
well, I feel like we need programs that are going to be geared towards the success of a child. I understand school, but I'm gonna be very honest. There are some people in school, and I'm gonna be very honest. When I graduate, well, when I got my diploma, my GED, a lot of the stuff that I took on that test, I didn't use it on my day-to-day job. Okay, we
Yep.
need programs in place that will gear those kids towards their dream of what they want to do. You have kids who say, I just want to do hair. I meet young ladies all the time in school, and I'm a barber by trade. So, that's kind of like a common ground for us when we start talking, because I'm a barber and you're a hairstylist. Okay. In my role, I feel like I tell them, hey, listen, why don't you just, go to LCC? Starting LCC is our local community college, North Community College.
Right.
Start pursuing that. I think we should have people and things in place where we can guide the kids a little bit better towards what they want to do. If this kid want to be a mechanic, we need to have programs in place within the community or school base that would gear that child towards it. And I think, when I was in school, we had brick masonry, we had a lot
There you
of
go.
stuff like
I was
that.
getting ready to see how old you were, Mewborn, because I
Yeah,
remember home ec,
home
brick
ec, so we
mason,
had all that
all that
stuff,
stuff.
right? But
Yeah.
we kind of got away from it, and I don't see a lot of it in school. And I
Yep.
think right now, and even some of the kids say, they don't have nothing like that in school. And I think it should be something that should be re-implemented back into school. I think in terms of that, I think it'll give the kids a good head start. I think we need to see more mental health within the community where they're, directed towards kids, because a lot of the young people I'm seeing mental illness in children more than I ever seen it. And I've only spent about 44 short years on this earth, but I don't recall seeing it as much, in the young people that I'm seeing it now. So I think we need programs in place for that. Like you said earlier, when we have a program like that, mental health, that would be a gateway to, prevent someone from going to jail, because a lot of problems that, they're facing due to the mental illness, I mean, the only resort they have is going to jail. Let's be honest, so then I think that if you can get programs like that that's geared towards that, I think we'll have a better outcome with that.
Did a mouthful. I definitely agree. I think the whole school curriculum honestly needs to be changed a little bit. So kids are wanting to actually go to school more, because some of the stuff that they're learning, they're not going to actually need when they get older. I mean, let's just be honest. So just like he said, let's bring back in like the home economics stuff. And shoot, if I could learn how to do tax and stuff like that, or filling out a check, minor stuff like that, I mean, it's really life skills that we need to know. So I feel like that'll also help the kids, because they know that they're going to need this when they get older. So if parts of that can kind of get added back into the school curriculum, I think that'll help them more out, and more resources that are free. Because it is a financial burden that's going on right now, that has been going on for families. Right. So for them to see that they do have options that they can go to after school that are free, like it could be a therapist, a counselor, just stuff like that, I think kind of needs to be more available.
So I want my listeners to understand that what you're hearing from individuals that are two SROs, school resource officers in Kinston, that are talking about children needing these types of resources and the things they're actually seeing on the ground. And you're probably like, well, that's a small community. Yeah, I think it's less than 20,000, 22,000
Mm-hmm.
persons. What I also need my listeners to understand, there are 18,000 law enforcement agencies across this country. And the bulk of them, 90+%, have less than 100 police officers. Kinston stands at about, I guess, budgetary 75.
Mm-hmm.
So this country is made up, with all due respect, of small Mayberries. So if we don't, so this is where the families are. This is where communities are. I'm not saying, I work for Durham 500 plus, and then you have, Memphis 2000 plus, those types of, they are the 1%ers, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
But we're talking about community. These two people lived in Kinston, grew up in Kinston. So
Right.
there's, so they know what they're talking about, and they know these individuals and trying to do that. So totally agree with everything you guys just got through saying. In fact, it's interesting that you got at Rouse, you talked about taxes. Somebody was saying teaching them finances, teach them how
Right.
to
How to budget
invest.
and all that.
That's a life
Yeah,
skill.
all of
Life
that.
skill.
Yeah, all of that is something. I mean, not everybody want to go to college.
Right.
Not everybody want to go to college. So at least kind of give them some idea of what they could be. Because a friend of mine was talking about, he's learning air conditioning.
Heat and air. Absolutely. Good trade.
And I ain't gonna tell you how much they charge me when I come to hit just to clean my air conditioner,
Right.
just the maintenance.
$50. I know it. And upwards.
Yeah, and then they say, well, you might need this. What? I just
Right.
called you here to give me maintenance, boo. But but
Yeah.
that's some money right there.
Yeah.
That's money. Plumbing.
Yes.
I wish I knew how to do somebody's plumbing. That is some
Yes.
stupid money.
Just for a house call. Yeah.
So those are the kind of things, like I said, not everybody, wants to, but I think for me, it's like, give them at least a solid first 12.
Right.
Give them that solid first 12, give them as much as you can. And then the other thing that I also put into the space is those, like you guys are talking about mental health stuff, resources.
Mm-hmm.
Put them in the school building.
Right.
Open up these buildings after hours. Ray and, gonna play basketball, like you said, but, grandma gonna come see Ray. Whole
Right.
family gonna come. You might be to handle something when everybody in the building. So why not use the school for resources? Use those spaces. Open on a weekend. I gotta say, because I just heard this from this person that I work with, who was telling me going to social services, and she has 4 kids. She goes to social services to fill out applications, right? For whatever she wants. Goes across the hall to get another service, and she has to do the very same thing in the same building. So we're talking about, you're frustrating these marginalized individuals to do stuff.
Right.
She was saying right across the hall, I just gave this person all this information. I went across the hall to another part of social services and got to give them the same information. And the two of y'all can't connect the stuff I just gave to the person across the hall. So this system is just
it definitely needs to be fixed.
raggedy. Yeah, and yeah, it gets frustrating. So yeah, I this has been, you guys are awesome.
Yeah.
You guys are awesome, and you're making a difference. And tell me what it is, how in this climate as Black officers. I realize you're in the schools and you're giving them hugs and stuff, but just tell me how it feels for you to be a Black officer in this moment, in this climate that's happening. Definitely just have to, Memphis, the Memphis 5.
I'm BJ, I'm going to be very honest. It's mixed. You're going to have mixed emotions. There are going to be times there are times that, we can turn on the TV and at any given time see something that would say, you know what, that is not what this badge is about.
That's right.
There are times that I'm at my school or I'm out in the community where, just a regular citizen that, or an old friend will see me and say, hey man, I'm proud of you. Those are the moments that I'm delighted to have the badge on. So it's mixed. It's really, for me, it's just mixed emotions, mixed feelings. I would say overall, I love it because I'm in a position where I can make a difference,
There you go.
And one thing, like Rouse said, when I put this badge on, I can't guarantee everybody's wrong or right. I can't. But what I can guarantee is that if I'm working whoever is working beside me is going to do the right thing. You know, it's not going to happen on my watch that you're going to do something. If, you know, whatever happens, we're going to do it right. You know, I get it. Sometimes, you know, we make mistakes, we do this and do that. But when it comes to the badge and doing what we swore to do or took an oath to do, that's just that point where I'm going to do what I got to do and I'm going to do it the right way. You know, so again, to me, it's just kind of mixed feelings sometimes, like going back to the Memphis, like I hate it. You know, it was just one of the moments where I wish it never happened. You know, I really wished it never happened. We're already living in a climate where we see so many people against their police. You know, well, let's just face it, this right here just took it another step further. You know, so it's just a hard time, I would say, but overall, it's still good. I still love it. Still love that. You know,
there you go. There you go. What about you, Rouse?
It's definitely hard. I mean, even with little kids, I was in Dollar General the other day, and a little girl looked just like me, probably I would say under 10 years old. It was her and her sister. And as I went to the register, because they were already at the register, she hid behind her sister. And she was like, oh no, I'm scared.
Oh.
I had some tissue and like soap in my hand. I had just got off shift and I was on the way home. So I was like, let me run to the store real quick so I don't have to do it later. And she's like, I'm scared. I'm scared of y'all. And I was like, hold up. Hello, how are you doing? You know, I'm Rouse. I was like, why are you afraid? I said, I'm just in here just to get some tissue so I can go home. Like, I don't look intimidating right now. And she was like, oh, well, you know, what she's seen or what she's heard out in the street kind of just made her be afraid. And so hearing stuff like that, it's hard because she's so young. I mean, literally less than 10 years old. And she's hiding behind her sister that's even smaller than her for protection because she sees the uniform. You know, she doesn't know me, hasn't spoke to me or anything, haven't had any interaction, but she's just automatically afraid. You know, she shut off. So it's definitely hard, but you know, I just try to speak with her and say, hey, if I see you again, give me a high five. I'm gonna make sure I give you a high five, you know. So it's definitely hard, but you just have to realize like good people are needed in this profession to change the mindset of little girls like that and you know, kids like that in general. Because you don't know what they're hearing when they go home or out in the street and filling their head up with that negativity. And also what you see that's happening on social media definitely doesn't make it any better. So people are needed in this profession that are willing to kind of put in the work and do whatever is necessary to, like I said, just better that relationship. And even if you just change one person's mind, they can influence somebody else. Say, well, hey, I met so-and-so, this officer, and they're not so bad. They're not so intimidating. So that part of it is definitely rewarding, just the hope that one day it'll be a better relationship and stuff kind of will stop that we see that's going on right now.
Y'all are awesome. I can't say that enough. That's really good. I think we're gonna probably wrap this up on that, but I appreciate that. And I really appreciate you putting that story out there, Rouse, Officer Rouse. Because people need to know that because I don't think people understand who it's impacting. I mean, we only hear from the adults, right? But this is a child in a dollar store.
Right.
Afraid of the police.
Right.
A black female with soap and a tissue in her hand.
Right.
Not threatening at all, but because of what she's seen, what the people are telling her.
What she heard.
In what she's heard. So yeah, it's a lot of work. It's a heavy lift. And you're right. And I appreciate both of you saying that. The heavy lift is on law enforcement. It is everybody in the bag. It is actually on law enforcement to figure out how to do that. I mean, when we did the training, you had a white female officer saying, you know, I ride through the community and I get flipped off. She said, what am I supposed to do with that? You know, and all she's doing is her job, you know, and she's just frustrated. I mean, I could tell by how she responded. She's frustrated. I didn't do anything. You know, I didn't put my knee on Chauvin's neck.
You know what? I think it affects the ones who really want to make that difference, who really want to make that impact, who really got into this profession to do the right things. Those are the ones that it really affects, I believe, you know?
Yeah. And that's a good statement. Yeah. The people that want, and you're right. You're right. People that want to make the difference. And that's what we need. We need all kinds of individuals. This film that I'm releasing and by the time this podcast is out, basically what I'm saying in that film, and for those of you hopefully will listen to it on the YouTube channel, is we're not dealing with our ancestors, police folks.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Police departments today are more diverse. We're actually probably working next to descendants of those individuals who architect law enforcement back in the day. So we got, you know, you got Black, you got women, you got Asians, you got gays, you got trans, you got all the 8 police departments are diverse. I mean, I'm not saying that there aren't issues, but we need to understand we want everybody. We want everybody. So I appreciate that. So yeah, this has been awesome.
Yes.
You guys have blown. I don't know what I expected, but I didn't. I really appreciate you speaking your truth, because
Absolutely.
that's what I want people to hear. And I also want to just say one more time to remind people, Kinston represents police departments across this country. This is about the size of police departments across the country. So if you want to get involved, these are the community, these are the officers that you're going to meet. These are the ones that you need to talk to. These are the ones you need to come in and speak to. These are the ones who represent these small agencies who actually are the backbone of law enforcement in this country. So don't get it twisted. It ain't, and I'm not saying anything against the larger one, but this it's more of the smaller agencies, 90% plus than it is of large agencies. So in closing, I'm going to start with Officer Rouse, since I started with you, Officer Mewborn. Is there anything that any parting words or advice or whatever you want to say? Go ahead and say it.
Parting words, just for everyone to just hopefully listen and do whatever that they can to just try to change the climate, change the person that's next to you. I really don't know. I've lost my words.
I would definitely,
That's okay.
Kind of harp off what Officer Rouse said. Be the change that you want to see. You know, we often can criticize and critique law enforcement, but very few people have been willing to put their hand to that plow of law enforcement and do work. I think that once they do that, it'll be a rewarding job, but they will get the benefits of making someone else's life a little bit better. I mean, it's a job that everybody ain't cut out for. There's an old saying in law enforcement: some are meant to be, and some are meant to call. And I think when you realize that you're meant to call is when you make that change.
Wow, I appreciate that. And you really are old school, talking about putting your hands on the plow.
Right.
you real old school, bro. I'm sorry.
You put your hands to the plow and do the work.
Yeah. You pulling stuff way. You definitely in Eastern North Carolina, buddy.
I'm telling you.
That is true. So thank you to you both.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, no, thank you very much. Thank you to Captain Jenkins, and especially thank you to Chief Keith Goyette, who is the chief recently appointed, the chief of Kinston. And I appreciate what he does for the community. I appreciate the fact that he understands it's a new day.
Yeah.
And is having these conversations with the community, and I'm honored to be able to say that I've worked with him. I hopefully consider him a friend. We've been knowing each other now for a while, so the fact that your leadership understands this moment
absolutely
says a lot. So thank you to both of you again, and so to our listeners, thank you very much for tuning in.
And I hope you invite us back.
Yeah, he wants to go. You can tell me.
I mean, I don't feel like we really got into everything we wanted to, so I think you need to invite us back.
Clearly, Mewborn's a talker, so we make sure he comes back. So, for those of you again who are listening for the first time, hope you enjoyed what you heard, and also by the time again, I want to let you know that we have a film out. It was released on February 25th. The name of the film is #Humans, HUEMANS, a guide to get home. It's about 30 minutes. And it has what we're calling a new version of The Talk. And what we're hoping is that you will tune in and look at it. It is free to be viewed. So the thing is, kids, gamers play for 8 hours a week. What I'm asking folks to do is sit your child down, and for 30 minutes, have them listen to something that could save their lives. So as always, as we sign off, stay well, be good, peace.